'Cause I'd rather slip walking on water than spend my whole life wondering what if. Lord, if it's you, tell me to come, 'cause you alone can tame the wildest wind. 'Cause I know I can make it. It was your voice that I heard, and I'm stepping out on your word. Here we go. This is how you walk on water, one foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under, just put one foot in front of the other. Hey. 'Cause I've got a faith, it's deeper than feelings. 'Cause I know a name that is greater than the storm. 'Cause I've got a God, never fails me. He's close. He's close enough to catch me when I fall. 'Cause I know I can make it. 'Cause it was your voice that I heard. And I'm stepping out on your word. Are you ready? This is how I walk on water, one foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under, just put one foot in front of the other. Oh, this is how I walk on water, one foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under, just put one foot in front of the other. Oh, this is how I walk, one foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under, just put one foot in front of the other. This is how I walk on water, one foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under, just put one foot in front of the other. All right, this next part goes like this. We're stepping out on his word. I'm stepping out on your word. I'm stepping out on your word. I want to hear you sing, here we go. I'm stepping out on your word. I'm stepping out on your word. I'm stepping out on your word. 'Cause I'm stepping out on your word. 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 I'm stepping, say the word and I'm walking on water. Say the word and I'm walking on water. Oh, I'm walking, say the word and walking on water. Say the word, walking on water. Amen, amen.
Hey, welcome to Anthem. My name is Kelly, and I'm one of the young adult leaders here. And I'm so glad that you decided to join us here on this beautiful Saturday morning. If this is your first time here, we actually have a gift for you. So what you can do is there's a little step on the slide that's going to be showing up. You can text Anthem Guest to 55498, fill out a little connect card, and then you can go out into the Disciple Center right outside these doors in that little courtyard area and grab a gift. We would love to just give you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining Loma Linda University Church and Anthem. And if this is not your first time here, welcome. We're so glad that you've made it back and that you're part of our community. And if you want to get involved, go ahead and also head out to that back area after church as well. Hey, at this time, we are going to worship and giving, and I'm going to invite the ushers to come forward at this time. You can either text Anthem Connect to 55498, or you can give right now in person. And personally, for me, I love to have this moment to remember to offer a little piece of just the things that I have been wanting to let go of, including the love for things here on earth, so that my heart is not set on treasures anywhere else but in heaven. So this is a time for me personally to give back, and to see that this small little seeds that we can give back will eventually be sown, will be planted, will be grown here. And Anthem does so many things here, so thank you so much. If this is your first time here, absolutely no pressure to give, but thank you for giving if this is part of your community. UReach Ministry is an amazing outreach ministry here at Loma Linda University Church, and they are doing, yes, Celeste, they are doing an awesome outreach. So if you believe that church is meant to be outside these four walls, and you love overseas trips and also to help others, we're doing a Kenya trip 2023. It is July 4 to July 18, July 4 to July 18. And there are 25 spots. So in order to sign up, you can scan this QR code. You can also go to lluc.org and look at UReach Ministry. There's so many outreach opportunities, but this is a special one that we're doing to go out to Kenya, and the pricing all includes airfare, transport, and you get to do a safari day as well. So it sounds really exciting, and we hope that you'll join us. Hey, if you're interested in joining any part of our team here, we would love to have your help. So much of what we do in order to keep church alive is because of you and you and you. And so thank you so much for being a part of this community. In order to keep us alive, we also need support. So we need just people to come and help and support, kind of like a deacon. So if you're interested in helping out in that kind of way, please come and talk to us. You can go out into the Growing Disciples booth right outside in that courtyard area. Come and talk to me, Pastor Jesse, Pastor Josh. We'd love to get connected with you. Last but not least, there's something that is really exciting that Anthem is doing. We believe here in this church that we want to be able to reach those who are outside of these walls. We want to be able to go out into the community and do work and really touch lives that maybe people who don't get the same opportunities that we do, or if anything that we don't rub shoulders against normally. And so we want to do, if you didn't hear about it last week, we're doing a single moms brunch February 26th at 10:30. And this is an awesome opportunity to just be able to love on those, to be able to go out there and show that we're here not only just as a church building, but we're here as the people of God, that we want to be His hands and His feet. And so we will definitely need a lot of help, car detailing, washing cars. If you don't know how to do any of that, Pastor Josh can teach you. We need servers, and we're going to be just loving on these moms. So if you know of any single moms that would love a Sunday morning off, if they would just love some time to just relax and to get pampered and to be loved on, invite them to this February 26th brunch. It's a Sunday morning at 10:30. And we would love to just grow together in that space. There's a QR code here if you would like to RSVP. There's going to be childcare provided. But ultimately, we hope that as a church together, we can rally together. We can be a church that goes outside and does work that we know is meaningful and that will build connections so that people will be able to see and be like, wow, Loma Linda University Church, they're not just that one building, they're here for the people and for the community. And in this time, we hope that right now in this space and in this moment, that you'll be able to open up your heart, open up your minds, maybe some notes that you have, a little book that you have to write your notes in. But in this time, we hope that for the next few moments, as you listen to Pastor Randy's message, that you'll be able to receive the message that he's about to speak to us and be blessed by it. Thank you so much for joining Anthem this morning.
Morning. Good to see you this morning. So it was the year before my freshman year of college. My brother and I were living together in a small house in Keene, Texas, working construction, trying to make some money for the upcoming study year. It was two guys living in a house together. I'm sure it smelled pretty ripe. It was also pretty bereft of food. I have this memory of my brother going to the kitchen cabinets and opening the doors And then just kind of standing there for a couple of seconds, just looking in at what wasn't there. And finally saying, "Oh, I guess I'll have cereal for a change," because that was our daily staple. So one week, somebody came and invited us to Sabbath lunch after church. Come to eat with us. And we were like, giddy up. Yeah, we'll be there. Got their address, time, beautiful. We were pretty excited. Home-cooked meal, this is going to be good. And then the next day, somebody else invited us to Sabbath lunch. And my brother didn't let me say, he said, "Yeah, we'll be there, absolutely." Got their details. As soon as they left, I'm like, "John, we already have it." He said, just watch and learn. And so what we did is we advised the first people that unfortunately, because of an engagement, we had to eat fairly quickly and we would have to leave early. Sorry about that. And we told the other people, we got an engagement, we're going to be a little bit late, but we're coming. And so we went to the first house and we ate this wonderful meal. And then we raced out, went to the second house and ate this wonderful meal. And then went home like, I don't feel so good. And at that moment, we're thinking, I won't eat till Tuesday. I am so full. And by the next morning, we're standing at the cabinet. I think I'll eat cereal for a change. And even though we couldn't have articulated it in these words at that time, what we realized was we yearned for Christian hospitality. Yearned for it. Needed it, probably. And we were so blessed when it came. But maybe there's more to Christian hospitality than just that. In fact, in this series, Insiders and Outsiders, we're considering whether or not it might be possible that Christian hospitality is the answer to a polarized planet, to a fractured world, to a world in which people just yell at each other, whether that's on all caps and 140 or 280 characters, or literally along the highway and everywhere else screaming and yelling at each other. Could Christian hospitality be the answer? So I want to start with just two paragraphs. Two paragraphs from the book, The Innovative Church by Scott Cormode. Scott Cormode has been very formational in my thinking about this. Just two paragraphs to kind of set the stage. He writes, in the New Testament, Jesus practices hospitality and receives hospitality. He eats with sinners and tax collectors. Accepting their hospitality was not just about sharing a meal. It was a way of identifying with them and making them part of his community, a point the Pharisees both understood and reviled. Luke 9 is a particularly interesting passage for understanding what Jesus was trying to teach the disciples about hospitality. At the beginning of the chapter, Jesus sends out the 12 without provisions. He purposely asked them to rely on the hospitality of others. When we Christians, especially those of us with economic power, read the passage, we focus on the message that the disciples carried. But Jesus intentionally put the powerful message in the hands of powerless people. He made them dependent. That is what Jesus did in the incarnation. When we carry the gospel to our neighbors, it is easy to let our own comfort get in the way. Cormode continues. In the same chapter of Luke, right after the disciples return, we see Jesus feeding the 5,000, another act of hospitality. The crowds have overstayed their welcome in a deserted area, and the disciples want to send them away. Jesus tells the disciples to feed these strangers, to treat them as if they are insiders or part of Jesus' crew. The command to provide hospitality makes no sense to the disciples, so Jesus feeds the outsiders. The disciples are so burdened by their limitations that they do not see the obligation and opportunity they have to extend their privilege to those outside the band. Jesus wants the disciples to treat 5,000 outsiders like they are insiders in his chosen band. So that sets the table. It was those two paragraphs that got me to thinking about Luke 9, the passage we're going to look at today. Now, as we read this part of Luke 9, there are three parts to the passage. The first part is about mission, but it involves hospitality. The third part is about ministry, but it involves hospitality. And then there's this strange insertion, 3 verses long, in the middle part about Herod. And when you read the passage, you think, what's Herod doing here? I don't understand this. But maybe what Luke is doing is simply this. When you're involved in mission and ministry, just know that Herod is always lurking in the shadows, always ready to interrupt what you're doing, what you're focused on. And in this case, the way Herod would interrupt it is because he's curious. He's not interested in mission. He's not interested in ministry. He's just curious. I want to see what's going on, who this is. I don't want any investment. Don't ask me to be hospitable, but I want to see it. You know, it reminds me of the way some approach church. So, 3 parts. We start with the first part, Luke 9, verse 1. When Jesus had called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. He told them, take nothing for the journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that town. If people do not welcome you, leave their town and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. So they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and healing the people everywhere. Now Herod the Tetrarch, this is the second part, heard about all that was going on, and he was perplexed because some were saying that John the Baptist had been raised from the dead, others that Elijah had appeared, and still others that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about? And he tried to see him. As Luke writes his gospel, there is a question that keeps arising time and again, stated in different ways, but it's the consistent, the core question of Luke's gospel. And that's this question: who is this Jesus? Who is he? I mean, when the disciples themselves ask that question, you know it's an important question. He stills the tempest and they stagger back in the boat and they say, who is this man? Jesus is very clear. And as the issues begin to build toward a confrontation in Jerusalem, he becomes increasingly insistent on getting the message of the kingdom out. In fact, Luke 9, it feels like we're early in the gospel. Do you realize that before this chapter ends, in verse 51, Jesus will turn his face toward Jerusalem for the final journey? So here in Luke 9, already the tension is building. And Jesus says, I've got to get this word out. So I'm going to deputize you, commission you. I want you to go out. You have my power. You have my authority. Go beat back the darkness. Go heal bodies. Proclaim the message of the kingdom. We have no time to waste. And then he gives them his instructions. Now, his instructions sound odd to us. But what he says there might be captured with 2 simple phrases. First one is travel light. Travel light. This is an urgent matter. Travel light. No extra shoes, no extra shirt, no bag, no money, no bread. Travel light. Now, in doing so, they intuitively know we are putting ourselves at risk because we will be totally dependent on the hospitality of others. And Jesus' attitude is basically, trust God. God will provide, and the way he will provide is through the hospitality of others. Christian hospitality would be what we would call it. So travel light. And then secondly, he says, stay focused. Stay focused. This is an urgent mission. This is an urgent message. Stay focused. He says, stay in the house that you first are taken into. What's Jesus saying? More than likely what he's saying is this: don't be looking around for the best hotel. Don't be looking around for the best accommodations, the most wealthy benefactor. Forget all that. This isn't vacation. This is mission, where they take you in, stay there, and get to work with what you're being told to do. And then this thing about wiping your feet, the dust off your feet, that was a formal act of separation known in that culture at that time as saying, we're done here, we're moving on. So Jesus says, travel light, and stay focused. And the way you're going to get this done is through hospitality. People caring for you. That's tough. I mean, come on. We live in a world of hotels and rental cars and Airbnbs and all kinds of things. What do you mean hospitality? In fact, what Jesus is saying here is even harder, because it's not like we're going to offer hospitality to someone. It's that we're at their mercy for their hospitality. I don't know about you, but for me, it's even harder to think of that than it is giving hospitality. I'm depending on them for this. And yet that's precisely what Jesus does. To accomplish the mission, you will depend on their hospitality. You ever been in that place? Where you're standing at the cabinet, think I'll have cereal for a change, except the cereal boxes are running out? Or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's some other kind of hospitality. The world of Jesus and the world that I live in are two very different worlds. So don't obligate us just to the specific details. Take into view the overall picture. So maybe what people need today in terms of hospitality is a welcoming heart, an extended hand in greeting, a smile, something that says, come and be part of our group. There's a place for you. Maybe that's what it is. So I was a student starting at Andrews University at the seminary. Now, to me, at that time, Andrews University was a huge campus. I was coming from Keene, Texas, Southwestern. I knew the town of Keene since I was a kid. Keene's a small town, both city limit signs on the same pole. I mean, you enter and you exit, you're out of it. That's the people. I know them all. I was at home there. Felt comfortable. And suddenly now I'm on this big campus, didn't know anybody, cold climate. I'm an introvert, slinking back into my room. How am I going to ever feel at home in this place? First few days were rough. I was homesick. First several weeks were rougher. I was homesick. And then somebody must have read it on my face, the only thing I can imagine. Because this fellow student saw me one day, came over and said, I want to meet you. My name is, and gave me his name, and come on, you got to join us. Turned out he knew pretty much everyone on campus. He pulled me into his circle, into his friend. We're going here, we're going there, you're welcome, come with us. He made me a member of his football team. As November approached and the dreaded Thanksgiving holiday for someone who's a dorm student, everybody leaves. He said, you're coming to my house. You're coming to my house. You'll spend Thanksgiving with my family. I look back to that as a transformative experience for me on that campus. Somebody on whose hospitality, though I may not have used that word at that time, somebody on whose hospitality I was dependent, I deeply needed. His name was Tim. His name is Tim Evans. He's a member of our church here. I see him and I still thank him at times. Tim, don't tell anybody you know me, but I am indebted to you to this day. So what about you? You may be at that place where you are needing, yearning for somebody's hospitality that will reach out and draw you in with their welcome. That's what we want to do at Anthem. And friends, we have to do it. We have to do it. No one of us can do it. I'll tell you, if I can screw up my courage and pray myself hot enough on a Sabbath morning that I can go out and greet all of you, when I'd rather be at home and behind the curtain, if I can do that, God will empower you to do anything, to draw anyone into our embrace. So that's the first aspect of Christian hospitality. Christian hospitality has two aspects. It's take and give. The first aspect is we take, we receive what God gives to us. And God gives that to us many times through other people. Christian hospitality, two things, take and give. First part, take, we take what God gives. with gratitude. So that's the first part. Then comes that middle segment about Herod, where all he's wanting is curiosity. I'm just a looky, Lou, just passing by. Don't want to get involved. Don't ask anything of me. I just want to see this guy, what he looks like. And then we come to the third section, which again will drive us straight into the issue of hospitality. Now, the curious thing is that it will do it following an interruption. An interruption. I don't know, I suppose you're like me. If you're involved deeply in some kind of project, in some kind of group experience or activity, you don't like being interrupted. But in this case, Jesus, who gets interrupted, does something remarkable. So back to Luke 9, verse 10. When the apostles returned, that is when they came back from their mission, when the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. Notice what it says. He withdrew. It's very intentional. You've come back. You've done what I asked you to do. You're deeply involved in the mission now. I can see it on your faces. You're tired. You're weary, but you're also excited. You want to process what happens. I need to disciple you further, so come on, let's go. They try to slip out of town over to Bethsaida on the other side of the lake, quiet, probably go into a house there, shut themselves in, and say, it's just us, the 12 and Jesus. We're the insiders here. And then they start to hear the noise outside, the chatter, building to a dull roar. And then the pounding on the door. And then, shh, they don't overhear. Shh, they'll go away. No, it's not what Jesus does. Did you catch what he does? Verse 11 again. But the crowds learned about it and followed them. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God and healed those who needed healing. He welcomed them. It's an interesting Greek word because it literally means he took them into his hands. Any one of us, we're with Jesus, just the 12, just the inner circle would have said, get lost. This is about us. Jesus opens the door and takes them into his hands and listens to them and teaches them and heals them and ultimately will feed them. He took them into his hands. Christian hospitality. Now the disciples, no doubt disappointed, having lost their time with Jesus, watch what happens as the crowd continues to build and the hours pass. They finally say to Jesus, this is crazy. There's no place for these people to eat. You got to do something. Send them away. Maybe there's some towns around here they can find something to eat. Please get rid of them. And this is what Jesus says. Luke 9, verse 13. He replied, you give them something to eat. Say what? You give them something to eat. They answer, we have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish unless we go and buy food for all this crowd. About 5,000 men were there. But he said to his disciples, have them sit down in groups of about 50 each. The disciples did so, and everyone sat down. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of the broken pieces that were left over. Notice what happens in this act of generous hospitality. It's the 2 parts of Christian hospitality. Take and give. We take what God gives, and then we give what God gave. That's Christian hospitality. We take what God gives, and then we give what God gave. Precisely what they did. That's Christian hospitality. Do you know how important this was? This miracle was so important to the early church community, to those who finally put pen to parchment to write the Gospels. It was so important to them that it is the only miracle told in all 4 Gospels, the only one. I mean, even Lazarus, raising someone from the dead, only made one. Here you've got this one. All 4 gospel writers tell it, which tells you something about how central it was to their thinking. And it all has to do with Jesus being hospitable. He could easily have said, church is over. Olive Garden's that way. I don't know what's that way, but enjoy. It's not what he did. He said, I will give. And I'm not going to just give. I'm going to give through you. Because you have what you need to have in order to live a hospitable life. You have it. We don't have enough. You don't have enough. You actually have more than enough. There will be left over by the time we're done here. Hospitality. So, it's take and give. We take what he gives, and then we give what he gave. That's how we're called to live. So could it be, is it possible that such a way of living might actually be a Christ follower's response to a polarized world? On every hand, we're polarized. People are furious or angry, screaming at each other, dividing more deeply, stoking with fuel the fires of resentment and hatred. Could it be that Christians who take what God gave and give what God has given them to others could actually make a difference in the world? So let me ask you a question. Where is there in your life someone who needs Christian hospitality? Someone who is yearning for that. Is it the immigrant family that lives in your neighborhood? Their customs are quite different than yours. They dress differently. Their English is difficult to understand. And if you look around the neighborhood, people avoid them. Maybe that's the place where you go to their door. You invite them to your home. You sit with them at the table. You hear their story. And you say, welcome. Welcome. Fred Craddock used to say, tell me who sits at your table, and I'll tell you who you are. Maybe that's the place. Or maybe it's that rowdy, boisterous teenager. Those are the terms you use around your kids. When you're with your spouse, it's, I hate that kid. Maybe that's the one. Maybe the next time you go to Disneyland, you buy an extra ticket and you take that kid with you. Come on. You'll pray more that day than you will any other time at Disneyland. You open the door. You welcome him. You take what God has given you, and you now give what God gave you to that child. And what is that? It's welcome. You can be a part of this, even though you may not be exactly like us, may upset us at times, may be difficult to live with. That's called church where I live. But God has done it for us. Maybe it's that person who sees sexuality and gender very differently than you do. You've been tempted to strike back, to lash out. Maybe this week is the week where you say, could we get a cup of tea together? I want to hear your story. And then you listen. Practice the discipline of not having the last word. And listen, like Scott Cormode says, to be changed, not to change. Listen. Maybe it's that Republican at the office. Names on the wall you despise. banners, bumper stickers on the car. You just want to, well, never mind what you want to do, but it's not good and it's not Christian. Maybe this is the week. You go home and you bake cinnamon rolls. You take them to the office and you say, I think you might enjoy these. And that's the last thing you say. Other than, you're welcome. Or maybe it's that Democrat neighbor who's always spewing off at you and always upsetting you and angering you. You can't wait to lash back at them. Maybe this is the week that you just listen. And at the end of it, with a smile, you say, thanks for sharing. Jesus, help me. Any of those spaces. It's what God has done for, you know what God has done for us? God took a fractured planet with ruptured relationships. God wrapped himself in human flesh. He stepped down the starry stair steps of the sky and he said, I will bring this planet in all of its rebellion and all of its anger and hatred and bigotry and racism and murder and everything else. I will bring this planet to my heart. For God so loved the world. You know what that word is? The word is cosmos. It's a word in the Gospel of John which stands for this planet in rebellion, in all of its opposition, all of its anger, all of its brokenness. It's not the world that spun pristine and pure from the Creator's hand. That's not the world in John. The world in John is riven by strife, fractured by violence. And then Jesus, in a garden at night, says to Nicodemus, for God so loved the cosmos, the world. That's what he did for us. For you, for me. It's what he gave us. So Christian hospitality is take and give. We take what God gave, what he gave, what he gives to us, and then we give what God gave. So where does that happen in your life this week? Where do you and I together as Christ followers step into that space not with anger and rage and sending vile tweets, but with Christian hospitality? So Eugene Peterson, the one who did the paraphrase, the Message, and wrote, some of the best books. Tell you, if I was stuck on a desert island, sometimes people ask, what 5 books would you take? The Bible, probably Desire of Ages. 2 of Peterson's books, Christ Plays in 10,000 Places, and The Jesus Way. And then a book on shipbuilding, how to get off this crazy island. Those would be my 5 books. So Peterson writes another book called The Pastor, where he tells his life story. And in this section, he's talking about Jan, the woman with whom he was in love, the woman he wants to marry. He's going over to her house now to talk to her dad about the potential of an upcoming wedding. And he's as nervous as any young person in that position. He writes this: I entered their home on a Thursday evening on February 1958 to ask for permission and a blessing to marry Jan. I rang the doorbell. Jan's father opened the door, surprised to see me. Jan isn't here. She's at choir practice. Yes, I know she's not here. That's why I'm here. Well, come in and sit down. We sat side by side on the sofa. That's awkward. I didn't know how to do this. He made small talk, then a silence, and then, tell me why you're here, Eugene. Well, what I wanted to, it's this way. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, Eugene, you don't have to go through with this. Let's have coffee. He rescued me. Now listen to what Peterson says next. He rescued me, an act of hospitality. I never did have to ask him. over coffee, we were able to have an easy conversation in which he gave both permission and blessing. No interrogation, no conditions. Welcome to the family. Christian hospitality. So where do you need to say that this week? Welcome to the family. You say, but Randy, there's so many other things. There are questions to answer. There are issues to wrestle with. There's theology to talk about. There are differences to settle. I don't disagree with any of that. You're absolutely right. God gave us a mind with which to think so that we would engage these discussions. But how about we do that in the family? A family who is so committed that it says to each other, this will not undo us because we're family. So where this week do you need to open your arms? Practice take and give. Take what God gives and then give what God gave. And say to somebody in your life, welcome to the family. Gracious God, you did it for us. You did it for me when my inner life was fractured. Let me never forget that, so that I might take what you give and then give what you gave. In Jesus' name.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. Sing it out this morning. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is, nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. Didn't want heaven without us, so Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name. Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a wonderful name it is. The name. Let's sing that one more time. What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory, for you are Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. You have no rival, you have no equal, now and forever God you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. We sing your praise, God. Your name is beautiful. Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, it's powerful. We sing what a powerful name. Here we go. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name